non-standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2 or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you and welcome to Sunday with Ben Leo as I cover for Michael Portillo today. An action-packed show in store this morning, including the Middle East on yet another knife edge. 50,000 people fleeing Lebanon overnight amid fears of an all-out war after the death of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. And closer to home, it feels like the Labour Party's also on the rocks, with Rosie Duffield dealing Keir Starmer yet another blow by dramatically quitting as an MP last night, accompanied, by the way, by a devastating resignation letter. She cited Labour's sleaze, nepotism and greed for her bombshell departure. And while Labour fumble, the Conservative Party conference kicks off in Birmingham today, but they're yet to decide on a new leader. Theresa May, did you see this? She says the party's lost its way by lurching to the right and not paying attention to the apparent threat of the Liberal Democrats. Some would argue it was the Lib Dems in disguise that left the Tories divided in the first place. And tomorrow night brings the return of former ITV star Phillip Schofield as he moans about his treatment after his workplace affair with a younger colleague in a new Desert Island TV show. What do you reckon? Does he deserve a second chance on TV? ITV sources this morning have slapped him down in an interview with The Times. And of course, we'll have the latest from the world of theatre with arts and stage editor at the Daily Express, Stefan Kyriasis. All that and more coming up, but first, your news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Ben. Good morning. It's 11 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB Newsroom. The Conservative Party conference begins in Birmingham today as party chair Michael Winstanley is expected to say he is profoundly sorry for the loss at the general election. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy arrived last night but are expected to leave later on today. It will be his last conference as leader. Earlier on today, our deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, spoke to all of the Tory leadership candidates. He quizzed Robert Jenrick on whether he could support any policy that the Labour government could table.
I've already said that the NHS needs reform. And if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support.
When pressed on why the Conservatives suffered such a historic loss at the general election, leadership candidate James Cleverly had this to say.
You've got to recognise that the British people kicked us out for a reason. And they kicked us out because of the gulf between what we said and what we did. So we need to promise less but deliver on everything we promise.
Tom Tugendhat was asked on why MPs should back him, considering he's the only candidate left in the race who hasn't held a full cabinet position.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
And last but certainly not least, he asked Kemi Badenoch if she thought if the leadership contest had been a clean race.
I think that whenever people do things that are, about other candidates, people can see. So I'm just focused on my own campaign. It's for the party authorities to decide. I'm very happy to correct the record, but it shows that he's not actually reading or listening to what I'm saying.
David Lammy has spoken to the Lebanese Prime Minister following a series of Israeli airstrikes on Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agreed that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes as the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in the airstrikes in southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death and that it is a historic turning point. Canterbury MP Rosie Duffield has resigned the Labour whip, accusing the Prime Minister of hypocrisy and pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. In a resignation letter, Ms Duffield attacked Sir Keir Starmer's decision to keep the 2-child benefit cap and means test winter fuel payments and condemned his handling of the outcry over gifts given to him and other senior Labour figures. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, told GB News he is disappointed in the resignation.
Well, I think when you read Rosie's resignation letter, you can see that these are the frustrations and disagreements of somebody who's held them for quite a long time. There's no secret about that. I think Rosie's been quite disaffected with the Labour leader, with the Labour Party for quite a while. So I'm disappointed to see her go because I like Rosie. And I think she's got a lot to offer politics. But ultimately, I'm not surprised.
Almost 10 million households have been warned that they risk overpaying for their energy if they don't send meter readings to their supplier before the 10% price rise takes effect on the 1st of October. The average household energy bill is set to increase by £149 a year from this Tuesday, as Ofgem increases its price cap. Phillip Schofield says the utter betrayal by his television colleagues has made him never want to be a daytime presenter ever again. The 62-year-old, former This Morning host, is set to appear on Channel 5's Castaway, marking his first TV appearance since leaving ITV in May of 2023, following an admission of an unwise but not illegal affair with a younger male colleague. And finally, SpaceX has launched its mission to bring back 2 astronauts who have been stranded on the International Space Station since June.
3, 2, 1, ignition, full power, and liftoff.
The Dragon capsule, which has 2 empty seats for Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams, lifted off from Cape Canaveral last night. The pair were only meant to be in space for around 8 days, but after a fault was found on their return vehicle, the new Boeing Starliner, it returned to Earth empty as a precaution, leaving them stranded in space for 4 months. The new team hope to bring them back in February of next year. Well, good luck to them. Those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining me this morning. A quick message from John on Your Say, who says, you know it's that time of the year when all the adverts are cough medicines and cough sweet adverts. Indeed, I woke up this morning, John, it crept up on me and surprised me. I am absolutely bunged up with cold, but we will make it through the next 2 hours. On to more serious matters. The Tory party conference, of course, kicks off today, and joining me live now from Birmingham is GB News political correspondent Catherine Borso. Good morning, Catherine. We heard, of course, from the Tory frontrunners with Tom Harwood on Camilla's show in the last hour or so. But call me not naive or a bit silly, but the whole conference seems a little bit pointless when there isn't really a leader in play. What do you think of that assessment?
Well, certainly there is not the energy or the buzz or indeed the stands that there were at Labour conference last week, or indeed when I was last here in Birmingham 2 years ago. They had the Conservative conference here. It was when Liz Truss's premiership began to implode, and the room that I'm in behind me was absolutely rammed with stalls. You couldn't move. Now, conference here hasn't opened yet, won't start till 10, but there's noticeably fewer stalls. There's a lot more space around. The leadership candidates walking around, of course, giving interviews. This is critically important for them and to the wider country, and the people that are saying, who cares about the Conservatives? It is important that we do have a functioning and strong opposition in this country, and the Conservative Party is best placed to provide that, given that they've got the largest number of MPs after Labour. OK, only 121. But still, there is unhappiness that this leadership campaign is taking so long. We're not going to find out who the next Conservative leader is till November the 2nd. But at the moment, these four leaders, James Cleverly, Tom Tugendhat, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, are using this really vital opportunity to try to get MPs on side ahead of MPs whittling them down from 4 to 2 on the 10th of October. And then the members will make the final decision. Now, at the moment, Kemi Badenoch is the favourite with the members, but Robert Jenrick is the bookies' favourite. James Cleverly and Tom Tugendhat more seen as being sort of on the centre of the party. James Cleverly, of course, with vast amounts of cabinet experience, has held really big jobs in government. Not the case with Tom Tugendhat, but in some ways that might be a plus because he's not contaminated, if you like, as some people would see it. He was security minister, but he was asked by Tom Harwood, about his lack of experience, and he highlighted that he had been in the military, that he'd led in war, etc. So they've all got different pitches, but the energy here is very, very different to what we've seen before. And I think a reflection simply of the fact that they're no longer in government. They're in opposition and they are having to regroup themselves, decide what type of party they want to be, and of course who they pick or don't pick as leader is going to have big consequences going forward.
OK, Catherine, on the ground in Birmingham, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'll catch up with you in the next hour. I'm joined now on the panel by my esteemed guests, former Chief of Staff to Nadeem Zahawi, James Price, political commentator Alice Grant and political commentator and broadcaster Matthew Stadland. Good morning to you all. Just on the Tories, James Price, you're probably the best equipped to answer this. Are they really in opposition at the moment, in all but name?
Well, in a way, they don't need to be doing very much. The Conservatives have won a load of council seats in recent weeks, and because of all the controversies happening in the Labour Party that I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, Keir Starmer, after this massive mandate that he's won almost by accident, people voting against the Tories at the general election, he's found himself already much less popular than Rishi Sunak in opinion polls. So, in a way, if we're going this well, do we even need a new leader? But to answer your earlier question to Catherine, I think the reason that this conference is important and why it will actually be a lot more fun, almost just by being freed from the shackles of of government is this kind of beauty pageant that we're seeing. And you're going to get a lot of mood music and a lot of MPs saying, more people seem to be following Rob Jenrick than are following Kemi, or vice versa, and getting a sense of who the members will be supporting if they haven't come out to back those candidates yet. And, of course, the members will get a good look at these people, the kind of packed schedule they're going to have. We better hope that they have some of their lemsips on hand as well, not to see a repeat of the Theresa May speech from a few years ago. But I think that's why it's important, because it will really determine who the next leader of the opposition and hopefully Prime Minister will be.
Yes, Alice Grant. And talking of Theresa May, she wrote an op-ed saying that the Tories mustn't lurch to the right, stop being inspired by reform, and need to actually be aware of the threat from the Liberal Democrats, which, again, I joked in the introduction, is a bit ironic, really, because some would say that the Tories' demise was because they're so full of Lib Dems in disguise.
No, precisely, and I agree with James. I think the real value in this conference will be precisely seeing how the members are going to vote in the leadership contest and what they actually are clamouring for at this moment. And I think it's very true that we've seen such soft, liberal, not even conservative policies over the last 14 years. The people really want someone who's going to take a strong stand against the kind of politics that we've seen with Starmer. And I do agree also that I think he's going to become very, very unpopular. But the point is, the person who needs to stand up strong against him in opposition will need to be someone who will stand up for what the people actually want and to be strong against Labour politics and very conservative.
And Matthew Stutton, do you agree with Alice when she says that the Tories of yesteryear were too liberal for their own good?
What I would say is that you don't really need my input on this, because you just ask Conservatives. One Tory source this morning said that these Tory leadership candidates, the four of them, are competing to be head of deck chairs on the Titanic. David Davis, who, of course, ran against David Cameron in that leadership contest, he has said that we haven't faced circumstances like this as a country since 1975. This country, as I keep saying, is on a precipice. After 14 years of Conservatives in number 10.
Circumstances as in what, sorry?
We've got a series of crises facing the NHS, as Labour accept, social care, our armed forces, the cost of living is still hitting people very hard. So the Tories are in, I think, the most desperate place they've been in my lifetime, right down there with the time they were led by Ian Duncan Smith. It is absolutely vital, because I'm sure we'll come on to Labour, that Keir Starmer and his government now get a firm grip. They get ahead of this story about donations, because there is a country to run, and there is the interest of every single GB News viewer at stake.
Yeah, but it's not just the donations. We discussed yesterday the political appointments to the civil service. It goes on and on. Let's remind ourselves of Tom Harwood's interviews with the Tory frontrunners from the last hour or so. Have we got Robert Jenrick's clip? Can we play that? Here it comes.
Yeah, I've already said that the NHS needs reform. And if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them.
James, Robert Jenrick said he would give a cast-iron pledge to get immigration, net migration, down to the tens of thousands. Where have I heard that before?
You'll have heard it before at the last election, the one before that, the one before that, and indeed for every single winning party going back to about 1974 has pledged to reduce immigration, and yet it's gone up and up and up. And look, I agree with Matthew in talking about the crises the country has faced, and that the Conservatives in number 10 didn't deal with nearly enough of these. And I think my diagnosis from working in 4 or 5 of these government departments as a special advisor is the fact that although the Conservatives may be the spokespeople, and now Labour are the spokespeople at the top of these departments, in many ways they haven't been running the government. It's been the civil service, it's been what Dominic Cummings used to call the blob, what you might just call the administrative state, all the kind of permanent appointments who are in there. When you're in something like the Department for Education, for example, there was me, there was about 9 other political people and 8,500 civil servants. Even if I'd wanted to, I wouldn't have been able to feel all the different things that department was doing.
So why didn't the Tories do anything about it?
That's exactly the question.
You guys were in power for 14 years.
Yes,
if there is a systemic problem with the civil service, if, there's a big if, why didn't you guys do something about it?
Yeah, that's exactly the right question, and that's what these guys need to be asked. And it's an inheritance of the Blair government that sped all these things up, and things like the Equality Act in 2010 came in, and I'm blaming the Tories for not undoing any of it.
No, we all know that the Blair...
Evelyn Waugh criticised the Conservative Party as never setting the clock back even a single second, and I agree with that. So let's see which of these guys can do that.
Yeah, here we are, but you pointed out the Blair government's legacy, and this is what it is. It's technocracy, it's bureaucracy. They were so obsessed with basically turning turning our politics into a political system based on quangos and groups who are held unaccountable by the electorate.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about what they did to our constitution
Mhm.
and all their reforms there, they massively changed the shape and what politics looks like. And this is the legacy. It's a government that's almost unable to function because of the blob.
They of course, did try and axe 60,000 civil service jobs in the dying embers of their tenure, but it was all too late, wasn't it? Should we play a quick clip of Kemi speaking to Tom Herwood? This is what she had to say.
Something Labour's done well. You asked this. I actually was thinking about this the other day because I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And there is nothing that they have done well. Winter fuel payment, two-tier care on policing, treating one group differently from another, stripping away Ofsted inspections. Parents don't know what's going on with schools.
So, Matthew, she was asked to say something nice about Labour, something they've done so far which she could praise, and that was her answer. Do you think that's fair?
I think what Labour are doing is, as well as being embroiled in these stories that we keep talking about every day, and by the way, I've said consistently...
Hang on, Matthew, you'd be banging on the battle if it was the Tories.
I've said consistently that this government needs to be held to account like any government.
But you said that as if we shouldn't be talking about it.
No, I've just said that they should be held to account like any government. What I'm saying is that I think on the positives, they have been committed and are committing to building a lot of houses. They're committed to bringing investment into this country. Don't forget, we haven't yet had the first Labour budget. And that is going to be
painful.
critical.
Painful, quote unquote, the Prime Minister.
It's going to be critical. It may well be painful. And if it's painful, the people, I think, who should not be feeling the pain are vulnerable pensioners and people who suffer as a consequence of the two-child benefit cap. The people who should experience a bit more of a burden, I don't think we can call it pain, are those with the broadest shoulders.
OK, Alice, Kemi Badenoch said this morning that cultures where women have fewer rights than men are those she deems less valid in Britain. What do you make of that?
Well, this is the thing. I think that our suffragettes in the Victorian era fought very, very hard for women's rights in this country. And it is a huge disservice to their sacrifice and the sacrifices they made at that time to allow ideas to penetrate our society which are fundamentally misogynistic. And we are seeing the rise of that. And there also seems to be nothing being done about this. I'd like to say that I agree with a lot of what you said, that we should be looking for the most vulnerable people of our society. But Keir Starmer's government simply doesn't seem like that's what he wants to do. And I think women and girls are now in that category where we feel like we're being abandoned and there's crime, there's rampant
Why do you feel
sexual
like you're being
harassment.
abandoned? In what way?
Well, because, I mean, Kemi mentioned the two-tier policing.
Right.
You know, if I go to the police with a severe complaint against sexual misconduct, I mean, the police are now so busy and trying to, like, criticise people who are writing tweets. It is just ridiculous.
Well, that's where you undermine yourself, because as a man, I hugely respect and listen to your concerns as a woman, that if you are going to the police because of sexual harassment or sexual misconduct of any sort, that you feel or it's the reality, you say, that you are not being listened to. And that is absolutely shameful that you feel like that, and that may be the reality. Let me just quickly, can I just quickly, very quickly,
this is a female issue, so I feel like I should speak on it. And I think what I'm really talking about here is criminal gangs, and we know that in the north of England there's been massive surges in young women being attacked by people who do not share our values, and they come to the police and they're not being listened to. And I'm talking about Bradford and all these places in the north where
I
that's
don't buy the
two-tier
two-tier policing thing at the moment. What is certainly true is that sexual assault, violence against women of any sort, including domestic violence, rape, these crimes have not traditionally been taken remotely seriously enough, and I stand shoulder to shoulder with you in calling that out. Let's not target immigrants. Let's make sure our police are sufficiently robust when there are crimes against women.
Did I ever say that? I did not say that.
Well, who are you talking about? Which criminal gangs are you
I'm talking about
referring
people who do not respect women. Because that is that they don't have those values alive.
Are you saying
people Kemi's talking about?
So we're saying that white British people, that there isn't a huge endemic problem with not just sexual abuse, but domestic abuse, I mean, come on, guys. We've got a crisis of violence against women coming from all quarters of our society. So let's not point the finger at particular groups of people. And if we're pointing the finger, let's at least be honest about who we're talking about.
OK, well, and Kemi is trying to do that in talking about different cultures. Now, cultures have been imported as people have been imported, right? People bring with them cultures. They bring with them different languages. They bring with them different religious beliefs. And those come into countries like the UK, like America, where you have a larger levels of immigration, and there's a kind of melting pot hope that you have, and the good things come out of that and the bad things get left behind. Kemi's point would be that that hasn't been happening enough, and that there are cultures that have better sets of values towards women and
we have a culture of domestic abuse amongst white men in this country.
But Kemi is
just as we do from any men.
Do you agree
men that
do you
are the
agree
problem,
with
not
Kemi?
immigrants.
Well, I think that if you have a set of
men,
cultures and religions that say that women are worth less than men, and there are cultures that say this woman is going to have to wear a veil all of her life
Let me
over
read
her
what
head
Kemi said.
and never get to feel the wind in her hair, that's inferior. Kemi would say that. I would say that too.
Let me read you what Kemi said. She said, I'm not talking about cuisine, I'm talking about customs. I think that cultures where women are told that they should not work, I would knock on doors and you would see somebody at the door who says, I can't speak to you, I'll go and get my husband. I don't think that is as equally valid as our culture. The point I was making about immigration is that immigration is something which we need to make sure we get right.
Any strand, any strand of any culture or any religion that places women below men is wholly unacceptable. Of course, I agree with that. But what I should also remind you, if we're talking, by the way, about Muslims, without mentioning Muslims, that vast numbers of British Muslims treat each other, men and women, with respect. Let's not tar vast swathes of our country or of our communities with the same brush. Any degradation of women, I don't care whether they're Muslim, Christian, whatever they are, is completely contemptible.
Matthew, can I ask you, do you count degradation of women as being that men and women have to enter a religious place of worship in different doors and sit at the front or sit at the back?
I made a documentary for the BBC with an Orthodox rabbi where that was effectively the case.
We've got to move on to the next one.
And I question that, because in whatever religion or culture, women and men, I think, should mix.
Yeah, good.
OK, great. We're going to move on to Tom Tugendhat. This is what he had to say to Tom Harwood a little bit earlier.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their, their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
OK, and James Cleverly had this to say as well.
The Labour Party, I think, are really bruised by the fact that it was the Conservatives who had the first, second and third female Prime Minister, the first Asian Prime Minister, the first black Foreign Secretary, the first Muslim Home Secretary. They hate it because they like that tokenistic identity politics. We just get on with the job. That's all I've ever done.
James, who do you reckon is going to win this Tory leadership race? One name.
One name. I think it's Kemi's to lose still, but if anyone does it, I think Jenrick has the momentum to overtake her.
Matthew?
Weak candidates, I think Kemi Badenoch will win because the Tory membership will vote for her, but we remember what happened when they voted for Liz Truss.
OK, and Alice?
Oh, wow, misogynistic tinge there. I hope
Sorry, I'm not allowed to
wins.
judge a politician according to their values. You think I'm judging them because they're women? That is such cheap debating.
OK, we'll continue this in the next hour. Alice and Matthew, thank you for joining us, and James as well. Up next, kind of carry on, in fact, from this debate we've just had. Is our English identity under threat? Robert Jenrick thinks so, but he can't exactly kind of describe what is Englishness. Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. You're watching Sunday with Ben Leo on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I've got a question for you here, Mr. Motivator. Each time I will try and do a Couch to 5K, and I start, and then it stops, and then I'll have another go. It's baby steps, though, for most of us, isn't it? You've got to start slow, because I also see people go out and run, do that, and then do too much, and they get completely exhausted and think, I can't do this anymore. So what is it? You have to start slowly, right? Is that fair?
Well, with everything that you do need to start slowly. But what's more important than that? You need to identify an activity that suits you. Now, the thing is, you may want to do couch to 5K, but let's say you have a preponderance for swimming. Maybe swimming is what you really like, or dancing is what you like. You find the activity that suits you. And I have to say, you'll never see a happy jogger. They're happy afterwards. They have enjoyed the experience, but they're never happy whilst doing it. But you must start with everything.
Have you ever been out of shape, though? Because whilst I find you really inspiring, I feel as though you've always been in good nick, and therefore it's kind of come easy to you. Whereas I think, you know, there are plenty of people who have a tendency to put on weight. I mean, I can look at chocolate and I feel like I put on weight. You know, and it's a slog, especially if you've taken your foot off the gas for a while. Getting back into it's brutal. What do you know about that?
Well, let me just say this to you, that in the early days, and I can go back, don't forget 71 years, our activity level was much higher. But this is something that's really just happened in the last 30 years. So in those 30 years, we have changed. We now spend more time in front of the computer. We spend more time sitting down. So that's why we need gyms and we need to get up. Now, gyms don't suit everybody. And that's why I do free classes, free club. You can join. Everyone can get access to movement in their home. But you have got to make that first step.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Ben Leo in for Michael Portillo on this Sunday. Hope you're doing well. Now, you may have already seen this in the week. Tory candidate, leadership candidate Robert Jenrick has accused the metropolitan establishment of weakening English identity through its policies and attitudes. But what exactly is English identity? I'm joined now by social policy analyst Dr. Rakib Eshan. Good morning, Rakib. There was little sense, I guess, of what Robert Jenrick meant by Englishness. So can you give me your best effort? You wrote on Spiked Online that if England is to develop what you call a truly successful civic national identity, we need to start celebrating its deep cultural roots. What did you mean by that?
No, absolutely. And thank you for having me, Ben, to discuss my piece for Spiked. Now, Robert Jenrick's intervention, I think that it was a fairly brave one. I think that it's important that we talk more about English identity. But I think where his piece in the Daily Mail was a bit weak was talking about the cultural and historical origins of that English identity. And in my piece for Spiked, I talked about the Germanic tribes which arrived after the withdrawal of the Romans, the Angles, the Saxons, Jutes and Frisians, how they were fused with ancient Celtic Britons who very much find their origins as far back as the British Iron Age, who are collectively known as the Anglo-Saxons. And ultimately, it was the unification of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms which formed England as a sovereign state in 927 AD. And my piece also talked about the Norman conquest, the impact of the Normans on English society. And later than that, from the 16th to 18th centuries, we saw the arrival of persecuted French Huguenots, who ended up being a fantastic integration story. They integrated very well socially. They were very well skilled. Many joined the military and rose to very high ranks in the armed forces. And I think the main point that I made there in that piece was that when we talk about English identity, we often focus on the post-World War II history, and we don't really go back to the very origins of England, how it was formed, how it was established, and how it developed in those previous centuries before that.
You also take aim at woke academics who dismiss the Anglo-Saxon influence because they say that it promotes whiteness and a false idea of what it means to be a native. How much of being English is down to demographics and skin colour? Because London, for example, is now a minority white British city, which is, well, I assume that's a bit of an outlier compared to the rest of the world.
It's absolutely, it's very much an anomaly in a global sense. I believe that the last census, it found that 36.8% of London belonged to the white British ethnic group. Now, I make the point that in order to have a healthy and prideful civic English identity, there has to be somewhat of an ethnic recognition. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think, in my view, when it comes to English identity, you can have that civic and wholesome identity, which people of all groups, ethnic and religious groups, can be attracted to. But I think my point is that we do have a dominant ethnic group in England, and I think that needs to be recognised. And I certainly take issue with metropolitan academic institutions such as the University of Nottingham, which are looking to do away with the term Anglo-Saxon when it comes to modules within subjects such as history and English language. And I think the idea that this is helping to incorporate ethnic minorities within universities. I think all too often those metropolitan liberals like to speak on behalf of ethnic minorities as opposed to hearing what they have to say.
Do you think Robert Jenrick's comments will really cut through to vast swathes of the electorate? Do Brits, well, English people, do they care about this conversation, really, do you think?
I think identity matters. I think we have more immediate issues, though, if you talk about the cost of living crisis, NHS waiting list. But I think also people are concerned by the level of immigration that we've experienced in recent times. It's now very much the mainstream view that immigration has been too high over the past decade or so. And while many people are very comfortable about talking about the economic impacts of that, I think we have to be very honest about the cultural effects, and that also relates to the pace of social change in local communities. It doesn't make people racist to raise those perfectly legitimate concerns. So I think that overall, Robert Jenrick made a very useful intervention.
OK, great. Dr. Rakib Hassan, thank you for joining us this morning. Appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/your say. I'll endeavour to read some comments out as we go along the show. Coming up, by the way, did you see the beautiful sunrise gracing many parts of the UK this morning? I was called out to the front garden by my wife, who said, look at the sky. I'll be sharing some of your viewer pictures, including these snaps. Have we got them? From Anne Diamond's sister down on the south coast. And also a cute little seal. We haven't got the pictures. I'll show them to you imminently after the break. I'll also be joined by a woman who gave birth to her second child while serving prison time, but is now working hard to rebuild her life and help others too. Back in just a tick.
Good morning, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's going to be wet and windy in the west today with outbreaks of heavy rain and strong winds, but generally drier in the east with some hazy sunshine. But it's a chilly start to the day, especially where we've seen some clear skies, but bright skies to start, especially across Scotland and across eastern parts of England. But further towards the west, we have an area of low pressure that's bringing in some strong gusty winds, and the Met Office have got a yellow wind warning in force for Wales and the southwest of England. So expect gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour. Mild here though, but probably unpleasant, feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine further east you go. So through Sunday evening then, we've got heavy spells of rain and a rain warning that will also come into force later. So heavy spells of rain, especially over the highest ground of Devon, Cornwall and also Wales. Turning cloudier across Northern Ireland with further spells of rain here, but generally dry across parts of Scotland with some clear skies to go into Sunday evening. But for many of us, it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled with outbreaks of rain continuing to push their way north and eastwards, coming into much of Wales, into the Midlands and then in towards the southeast of England. So like I said, we do have a Met Office rain warning in force, so expect further flooding and some difficult driving conditions as well. But that will lead to a milder night with many places seeing largely cloudy skies. And we also still hold on to some strong winds, especially towards the south and west as we start Monday morning. But Monday looks generally unsettled for a lot of us with outbreaks of rain and a lot of cloud around. So unsettled across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland as well, and then heavy spells of rain wrapping around this low pressure system, drier as we go later on in the southwest.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing.
With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that.
When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The king of breakfast TV is back. That's right, Britain's favourite TV host, Eamon Holmes, returns to Britain's hottest breakfast programme. Breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. As I was just saying, I was getting ready for work this morning when my wife called me outside to look at the sky, and it was beautiful, glorious sunrise, pink skies, and some viewers at home have been sending your own pictures. Beautiful shades of pink gracing the heavens. And this is Anne Diamond's sister, actually. She lives down by the south coast. Spotted that beautiful sky, and also, is it an otter or a sea lion in the sea? Other snaps, have we got them? This is from Cornwall. Others from Worcestershire, Swansea, Lancaster, South Wales and North Wales. The seasons... Oh, there's a miniature one. The seasons are definitely changing. The nights are getting darker sooner. And in the morning, when I leave for work about 5 in the morning, I look up, and if it's a clear sky, you can see all the stars. The moon, especially when it's shining brightly, is a sight to behold. So, yeah, wrap up warm. It's getting cold. And thank you for those pictures. Right, earlier this week, the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, set out plans to slash the number of women going to jail and ultimately closing women's prisons. The idea, which has been dubbed balmy by some, has sparked much controversy, not least why female criminals should be treated differently to men. But Mahmood said she wants more help in the community for women offenders and fewer court appearances. Well, I'm joined now by the founder of Project Accountability, Molly Ellis, who gave birth to her second child shortly before entering prison for... it was money laundering, wasn't it, Molly? Good morning, by the way. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning.
So what happened? So you were... well, it's a long story, isn't it?
It's a long story. How long have we got?
Yeah, probably not long enough. But basically, at 17, your life took a heartbreaking turn that would forever change your path. What happened? Just explain what happened.
So at 17, I was on a train, heavily pregnant with my partner at the time, and we was attacked on a train by around 22 youths on a train unprovoked, and which led me to go into labour with my firstborn daughter. And Michael, unfortunately, he went into a coma where he's still brain damaged in a vegetable state.
Who was that, your partner?
Yes.
The father of your...
The father of my child, yes.
Oh, my gosh. And how far gone were you during that attack?
I was 9 months, so I gave birth a week later.
Goodness me. And then, since then, you kind of attribute the fact that you got involved into the wrong crowd. Later on, you were involved in a money laundering incident, and you spent time behind bars for that.
Yes.
What was that like, going into prison shortly after you'd given birth to your second child?
It was difficult. It was very difficult. I totally agree with what the minister's trying to do at the moment with, you know, looking at the system and changing it, because, you know, if we've worked for something for so long and it doesn't change things, we need to revisit that and look at it. So I totally agree with looking at, you know, the options of not sending women to prison and looking at a more reintegrating them back into society, giving them second chances and options. It's a really difficult thing anyway, going to prison, leaving your family, and obviously we understand that, you know, you have to be punished for things that you do, but you can see the massive strain that is causing on the prison systems at the moment, and we need to revisit and we need to look at it. We need to make changes. And
you mentioned that you had gone into prison. Your second child came with you for a period. How long were they in there?
So she was inside, was 6 months with me, and then she went home where my family looked after her, and then I finished off my sentence.
So you had to say goodbye to her?
Yes.
How was that?
Challenging, mentally challenging, especially knowing that I wasn't going to see her until I got to an open prison. But, you know, you're faced with something. I was wrong. I did something wrong and I had to be punished for that, so...
See, the argument is with people like Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, people say, well, hang on a minute, men and women want equality. Why should women be treated differently by having fewer prison sentences, fewer court appearances?
Women commit crime for different reasons to men. And it's important that we separate that. So a lot of, if we look at data and go back in time, we look at why women offend. A lot of it is around abandonment issues, childhood trauma. People don't offend, look, 60% of people in prison for non-violent crimes. So could we help them reintegrate back into society? We already know that there's not a lot of mental health services out there at the moment people can get access to. So we have to look at the stories behind why people are offending, especially if they're for non-violent crimes.
OK, and since then, look, you've used all your trauma and your experiences and your time behind bars to kind of do or be a force for good. Tell us about Project Accountability. You founded it. It's an organisation. What do you do? Why did you found it?
Yeah, so actually the Justice Secretary was in the prison that we founded this project in recently. She did her big press conference from there. So the project that we focus on, James Timpson actually gave me my first opportunity, which is really ironic.
Prisons Minister.
Yes, yes, he gave me my first opportunity to work in Max Spillman at the time. So we know that that's a model that works. So at Project Accountability, what we found was bridging the gap between the prison system and employers was something that people were falling through the net. You know, the government has lots of good intentions with these programmes, but actually finding employment at the end of it is the most difficult thing. So we kind of go into the prisons and we focus on finding people jobs 6 months before they're released into prison. So for myself, with James giving me the opportunity, I was able to save up for my own house. I was able to leave prison with savings. So guess what? My crime would have been my risk would have been less likely to reoffend because I had a house, I was in a stable condition, I had money. So that's what we need to focus on. That's what we do focus on at Project Accountability, is finding the jobs before they release prison.
So, Molly, tell me, what did you make of the scenes we saw a couple of weeks back when Labour released thousands of prisoners early, some of them coming out of Wandsworth and getting into, I mean, on one occasion, someone got into a Lamborghini, others were popping champagne bottles. Are those the kind of people that Project Accountability and your organisation would help?
No, I think that's the media making it look like something. I mean, there's lots of people in there that have worked really hard. I've recently hired someone from prison who's actually just done a law degree and got an honours in prison. He's the first ever person to do it. He's actually coming out in October. He'll come to work for the project. But look, you're going to get some narrative like that. Not everyone may be rehabilitable, but let's focus on the ones that are. Not everyone has that stigma against them. And there are some people that really do want to change. I think the media make it look like, you know, we can't save everyone, but we can focus on the ones that do want to.
Yeah, I mean, they were sights to behold, those pictures. But tell us about your work with youth offenders as well.
Yes, so me, my co-founder, so he comes from a boxing background, so we focus on preventing crime as well. I think that's important. There's a lot of young people that don't have a lot to do. Knife crime's out of the roof. So we open up local gyms across the country and allow them to have an 8-week programme of learning how to box. Reason for that, it teaches discipline, mental health is great for, and it gives somebody a safe space to then show their anger in a positive way.
Yeah. Channel it.
Yes.
Molly, there will be some people watching this, though, I guarantee, who will say, well, look, I didn't have much to do as a kid. You know, my youth centre was closed or whatever else, but I didn't go out committing crime. What do you say to those kind of people?
You don't know people's backgrounds. You don't know their walk of life. Some people don't get a first chance in life, let alone a second chance. Let's not judge. We're here right now as a community. We need to bring that community back. We need to understand people more and allow people that second chance to change, because we're going to grow up in an environment where our kids have got to grow up around these people as well.
Yeah.
So let's try and do a positive impact going forward.
Well, Molly, look, you're a massive inspiration from, you know, having a child so young and dealing with that, and then the train attack, and then going to prison as well. And you've, you know, if you don't mind me saying, turned your life around. So well done to you and congrats. And tell us more about how people can find out about Project Accountability.
Yes, so they can go onto the Instagram, which is Project Accountability CIC. Also, we can make sure that we add onto the inbox. If anyone does feel that they need any support or mentoring around it, please give us a shout.
Great. Molly Ellis, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Great to meet you. Thank you. All right, still ahead, we're going to be whisked away to the stage with arts editor at the Daily Express, Stefan Kyriasis. Back in a tick.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody. in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Patrick Christys Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Richard, you know, the King will probably fly there, I would imagine, with the Queen. You can guarantee they'll have to make a point about offsetting their carbon just to keep that lot happy. They won't use the walkabout term because they'll have to keep the Aboriginal community happy over there. Obviously, they'll be fine that the Queen's face has now been taken off banknotes over there, replaced, I believe, by a member of the Aboriginal community, naturally. You know, you've got all of these tick boxes that the King and the royal family have to do, instead of just maybe, I don't know, leading, being there, being present. Why do they keep bowing down to this stuff?
Well, firstly, as I say, I mean, if you look at the Commonwealth, there are 56 countries. Now, I think that's an enormously important institution, and we benefit in all sorts of ways, as do the other countries who are members of it. Now, if you don't take account, with times changing, by the way, of course, as they did during Queen Elizabeth's reign, if you don't take account of various sensitivities, especially certain pressure groups, I'm not suggesting that we write off our history as being something that's dreadful. There are ups and downs and pluses and minuses, we all know that. But the point is to be sensitive to other cultures, and that is absolutely pivotal.
What we're seeing in the UK, a lot of these same issues do crop up in Australia, especially with freedom of speech and saying the wrong thing, getting cancelled. I've met with so many people who have personally, like, they've been deplatformed, lost their jobs just for having an opinion, just for potentially saying the wrong thing, and then losing their livelihood as a result. So with Australia, I think particularly this is the trend that we saw from 2020 with the lockdowns, especially in Melbourne, some of the harshest lockdown restrictions in the world. Now, Australia is known as being a country of freedom and liberty. So then I think for many Australians, it was a huge turning point, a big wake-up call.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Next Sunday, join me, Camilla Tominey, for an exclusive interview with one of the most controversial, influential and unique political figures of our time. Boris Johnson will be in studio discussing his new memoir, Unleashed, the gripping story of how he dealt with plotting politicians, problematic princes and a pandemic. From Boris bikes to Brexit and everything else in between. Next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's fast becoming my favourite segment of Portillo's show when I cover. Arts editor of the Daily Express, Stefan Kyriasis, is here with me now. Good morning,
Hello.
Stefan.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again. What's in your box of tricks for me today?
We've got a very contentious topic. So this is Giant. It's the show about Roald Dahl. John Lithgow, incredible actor. It's on at the Royal Court until November. And it's based in 1983 when The Witches was just about to be published. Now, we've had a lot of stuff recently where last year a lot of the books were edited and censored and things were taken out of them. There's also been this rumbling anti-Semitism, which actually people think is quite recent, but came up before the publishing of The Witches. So we're on stage with him. He's at home, new relationship, house is being renovated. He's got back problems. He's cranky. He's very annoyed that Quentin Blake, the illustrator, gets royalties from his books. And he's this sort of charming, avuncular figure that's a little bit patronising, but very likeable, very wise. And a representative of the American publishers comes in, played by Romola Garai, who is incredible as well, because there's problems in America. People have read the books, but also he reviewed a book in the New Statesman that was about the Palestine-Israeli war at the time, 1982. And in it, he very much took the side against Israel and Zionism and said, this is when we all started to hate Jews.
Oh, God.
So this was all rumbling around, and then the play examines all of this, and with what we know since then, and Lithgow gives this incredible thing where it's like a lizard, like a little tongue flickering in the background every now and then of menace, and it builds, and it's beautifully written. And you do that thing where you're like, I can see his point, you know, also pro-Palestine, the Israelis attacked refugee camps there, and huge parallels with what's going on right now in the region. Very complicated, and you sit there going, I don't know if I understand enough about this, and, you know, both sides and everything. And then slowly, actually, the toxic hatred that's underneath starts bubbling up. It's beautifully, beautifully done. And at the very end, there's a very famous phone call he made to the New Statesman where he'd been asked to apologise for his comments, and then he doubled down on them and famously said that the Jews control the media. There's a reason why Hitler, even though he was a rotter, got some things right. There's a reason why we're anti-anything.
So just so we're clear, Roald Dahl, we're talking about Roald Dahl here.
Yep, absolutely. Wow. And he was anti-Semitic. But then you have the thing of love the art and not the artist.
Yeah.
Children are absolutely devoted to his books, but are they learning perhaps not positive things from the books? It's really interesting. I came out of it as fascinated as I was confused, conflicted, and I love that sort of thing. But the performances are incredible. The script is incredible. It's on at the Royal Court. There's tickets for £15 released every Monday. It's a really great piece of theatre that makes you think, but it's also really entertaining.
Great.
It's not a heavy piece.
Giant. Sounds very, very good. What else? A Face in the Crowd. Tell us about this.
Now, there are some parallels with You Know Who. It's based on a 1950s film about a kind of drifting chancer that's very charismatic. That suddenly
when you say You Know Who, are you talking about Donald Trump?
Well, he finds staggering fame through radio and then TV, and then notices that with his simple talk and by sort of spouting homilies and jingoism, he can start affecting the public mood. We've got a little clip of Ramin Karimloo singing, who is the lead.
Now the streets are full of water, the creeks are full of sand. The mothers tell their daughters not to make their demands. Some is a tongue twister chasing at my doors. The girls started swooning and dropping their drawers. Giddy as a cadabout, simple as a fiddle.
Very good. So, yeah.
He's incredible. He's well known, like Broadway, West End, for playing Phantom of the Opera. Here, his voice is stunning. There are parallels, and the guy, he's a jailbird in this, but he pretty much rides it all the way almost to the White House. But I would say Ramin here is very attractive, very charismatic, and has lots of talent that's very evident. But really interesting questions again about the media, even knowing that some of his views are becoming difficult.
Yeah.
He's popular, so they promote him. Politicians, again, other politicians wanting to be associated with him, even though they have a problem with some of what he's saying. So there's all these parallels. This has been going on since the 50s. It's happening again today. The show is great. I would say it doesn't quite deliver on the promise, but that's on at the Young Vic until November as well, and very entertaining.
A Face in the Crowd. Great. Thank you, Stefan Keriasis. Very enjoyable, again, having you back. Stick with us for the next hour. We'll have the latest from the Tory conference. Back in a tick.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We have an east-west split in the weather today, dry in the east, but turning increasingly unsettled from the west with heavy spells of rain. This is all to do with this area of low pressure, and there's a squeeze in the isobars as well, indicating some strong and gusty winds. But through the rest of the afternoon, especially across Scotland and eastern areas in England, staying dry with some hazy sunshine, but further towards the west, turning increasingly unsettled, heavy spells of rain moving through, and also some strong winds, and there is a wind warning in force for gusts up to 50 to 60 miles per hour. Otherwise, temperatures feeling pleasant in the sunshine, further towards the north, highs of 15 degrees here. As we go through Sunday evening, it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled once again from the west, but across parts of Scotland, staying largely dry with some early evening sunshine. Across Northern Ireland, that low pressure system still making an influence, so heavy spells of rain are going to be pushing through. And as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain is going to continue to push its way eastwards, and we do also have a Met Office rain warning that comes into force across southern parts of England and Wales, so expect some difficult driving conditions, but also possible further flooding on its way. Now, that cloud and rain continues to push its way eastwards. Many places across Wales and southern parts of England seeing outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning, but generally a mild start with temperatures around 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to the new working week with heavy spells of rain, especially across northern parts of Wales into the Midlands and towards the east of East Anglia as well. Towards the south, it will turn a little bit drier. We may see some brightness, and further towards the north of Scotland, we may hold on to a bit of sunshine, but otherwise still staying breezy in the south, highs of 17 degrees.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having £3,000 each month for an entire year. Extra cash in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Take a year off and keep it to yourself. You don't even need to tell the taxman, as it's totally tax-free. For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 25th of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the second hour of Sunday with Ben Leo, covering for Michael Portillo as he winds around Europe by train. We'll be going live to the first day of the Tory party conference to get the latest from Birmingham before getting stuck into the day's big stories with my panel, including Boris Johnson saying his only mistake over Partygate was apologising. Families of the Nottingham knife murder victims have blasted the BBC as shameful, and former ITV star Phillip Schofield's big TV return tomorrow. And by the way, I've also been promised a flurry of burgers and fries before the show's out in our Taste of Britain segment. Ed Miliband, eat your heart out. First, though, your news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Can't wait for those burgers. Good morning, it's 12 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB Newsroom. The Conservative Party conference begins in Birmingham today as the party chair, Michael Winstanley, is expected to say he is profoundly sorry for the loss at the general election. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his wife Akshata Murthy arrived last night but is expected to leave later on today. It will be his last conference as leader. Earlier on today, our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, spoke to all the Tory leadership candidates. He quizzed Robert Jenrick on whether he would support any policy the Labour government could table.
I've already said that the NHS needs reform. And if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would...
When pressed on why the Conservatives suffered such a historic loss at the general election, leadership candidate James Cleverly had this to say.
You've got to recognise that the British people kicked us out for a reason. And they kicked us out because of the gulf between what we said and what we did. So we need to promise less but deliver on everything we promise.
Tom Tugendhat was asked why MPs should back him, considering he's the only candidate left in the race who hasn't held a full cabinet position.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
And last but not least, he asked Kemi Badenoch if she thought that the leadership contest had been a clean race.
I think that whenever people do things that are, about other candidates, people can see. So I'm just focused on my own campaign. It's for the party authorities to decide. I'm very happy to correct the record, but it shows that he's not actually reading or listening to what I'm saying.
In other news, David Lammy has spoken to the Lebanese Prime Minister following a series of Israeli airstrikes on Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agreed that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes after the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed in an airstrike in southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death. And a UK-led partnership has delivered a major blow to international people smuggling gangs after hundreds of small boats and engines were seized on the Bulgarian border with Turkey. The border crossing in southern Bulgaria is one of the key routes used by organised crime gangs to smuggle small boat-related equipment into Europe and up to northern France. Over the past 12 months, officers from the UK's National Crime Agency have worked in Bulgaria, sharing intelligence and mounting joint operations to target the people smuggling supply chain. Canterbury MP Rosie Duffield has resigned the Labour whip, accusing the Prime Minister of hypocrisy and pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. In the resignation letter, Miss Duffield attacked Sir Keir Starmer's decision to keep the two-child benefit cap and means test winter fuel payments and condemned his handling of the outcry over gifts given to him and other senior Labour figures. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, told GB News he is disappointed by the resignation.
Well, I think when you read Rosie's resignation letter, you can see that these are the frustrations and disagreements of somebody who's held them for quite a long time. There's no secret about that. I think Rosie's been quite disaffected with the Labour leader, with the Labour Party for quite a while. So I'm disappointed to see her go because I like Rosie and I think she's got a lot to offer politics. But ultimately, I'm not surprised.
Almost 10 million households have been warned they risk overpaying on their energy if they don't send their meter readings to their supplier before the 10% price rise takes effect on the 1st of October. The average household energy bill is set to increase by £149 a year from this Tuesday, as Ofgem increases its price cap. Phillip Schofield says the utter betrayal by his television colleagues has made him never want to be a daytime presenter ever again. The 62-year-old is set to appear on Channel 5's Castaway, marking his first TV appearance since leaving ITV in May of 2023, following an admission of an unwise but not illegal affair with a younger male colleague. And SpaceX has launched its mission to bring back 2 astronauts who have been stranded on the International Space Station.
3, 2, 1, ignition, engine full power, and liftoff.
The Dragon capsule, which has 2 empty seats for Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams, lifted off from Cape Canaveral last night. The pair were only meant to be in space for only 8 days. But after a fault was found on their return vehicle, the new Boeing Starliner, it returned to Earth empty as a precaution, leaving them stranded in space for almost 4 months. The new team hope to bring them back in February of next year. Well, good luck to them. Those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Lewis, and welcome back to Sunday with Ben Leo, covering for Michael Portillo just for today. Let's head live now to the Tory party conference in Birmingham, where GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster is on the ground. Catherine, sounds a bit more livelier than the last time we came to you around an hour ago. What's the latest?
Yes, it is, Ben. That's because they're letting people in to the centre. The conference actually doesn't kick off till 2:30, but lots of people milling around. I have to say, we were here in this conference centre 2 years ago when Liz Truss's premiership began to implode. There were a lot more stands here then than there are now. But the former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, arrived last night. He will be speaking to Conservative members at 5 o'clock this afternoon, and then he will be going home. He wants to get out of the picture to leave the stage clear for the 4 people, one of whom, come November the 2nd, will become Tory leader. The same can't be said for the former Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who will be popping up. She still wants to give her opinions. She will be at conference at some point. Boris Johnson, another former Prime Minister, there's a lot of them around, aren't there, will not be coming, but of course he's got his book Unleashed coming out that we're hearing experts about. But really, this conference is the chance for Kemi Badenoch, Robert Jenrick, James Cleverly, Tom Tugendhat to set out their stall to MPs and members. There's 4 of them now, down from 6. There will only be 2 of them will go through to a final vote with members. So MPs will knock 2 of them out in a couple of weeks. So what they have to do now is get the number of MPs to get them through to those final 2. Robert Jenrick, who's currently the bookies' favourite, they feel confident that they will have the numbers. Kemi Badenoch is the favourite with members, but will she get that far? Because there's all sorts of mutterings here and concerns from her team that the other teams may play some sorts of dirty tricks to keep her out of the final 2. Then we have James Cleverly, of course, huge amounts of experience in government that may help him or it may hinder him. And then Tom Tugendhat, who was security minister but is much less untainted, if you like, with what went on. He is very keen to stress his military background. He says he can lead in a way that he feels the Conservative Party hasn't had the leadership that it needed. But it's building up now. We'll have several days of glad-handing events. Kemi Badenoch's team told me that they have 50 commitments here, so they will be working from early in the morning, all these 4 candidates, till late at night, because this is make or break time now for their campaigns.
Thank you, Catherine. Can I just clarify? You said Rishi Sunak is going home at 5 o'clock and he's not returning to conference. Is that right?
He's speaking at 5 o'clock. My understanding is then that he will be leaving conference this evening. He came yesterday. I think the feeling is that he, to put it bluntly, is the past, and the future of the Conservative Party is one of the 4 candidates, and he wants to leave the stage clear for them. So, yeah, my understanding is that he's going back today.
OK, Catherine Forster on the ground in Birmingham, thank you. James Price, what do you make of that? Rishi Sunak doing a runner hours after the conference has started?
Look, Ronald Reagan said the 11th commandment was thou shalt
not criticise a fellow Conservative. I fear I may be about to sin. I just think it's poor form, to go in the election earlier than it needed to be. If you'd have waited, there'd have been better economic news, there'd have been more time for his government to have got more things done that he could have gone to the electorate with. And, although maybe a lot of MPs and some journalists will be glad to see the back of him, there'll be party members there who will have wanted a chance to talk to him, wanted a chance even just for a selfie to see someone who used to be so powerful and so popular. I think it's sad that he doesn't seem to care about the future of the Conservative Party, even in terms of the ideas, the policies, the philosophy. That's some of the point of sticking around at conferences like this to talk about.
The whole thing seems totally pointless. Why are you having a conference costing, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of pounds? You haven't got a leader. The leader you do have in name only is done one home within hours of it starting. What's the point, Alice?
No, I think James is right that this is going to be about the bigger picture, the wider ideas, the philosophy behind the Conservative Party. What we need now is a reinvigoration of the actual point of conservatism in this country today in that political climate.
Sorry to interrupt, but how can they talk about the philosophy of the party when they don't even have a leader? I mean, whose philosophy?
Well, that's the thing. We're going to get to see the different leaders propose their vision. We're going to hear what members have to say, and they're going to be speaking here, and there's going to be stalls, and people will be able to actually decide what conservatism in this country will look like. And that's really important because, as we know, that we're facing a crisis here in actual conservatism.
We knew the book that Margaret Thatcher threw down on a cabinet table saying this is what we believe, and it was Friedrich Hayek's The Constitution of Liberty. I'm one of only about 3 people I've ever met to read the thing. It's very good. It's not terribly exciting. It'd be nice to know what books the 4 candidates do. I'm not sure that Starmer has a book that he'd ever thrown down that he knows that isn't some kind of legal textbook.
Yeah. Matthew, are you surprised Rishi Sunak is leaving early? And not coming back?
The Tory party is in a desperate state, and deservedly so.
OK.
I think this is worth mentioning. Fewer than half of the 121 Tory MPs, it's an extraordinarily, mind-bogglingly tiny number of Tory MPs that are left after the last election. Fewer than half of them, I think, have come out for one of the candidates. That suggests to me a massive vacuum in the parliamentary party. No passion.
Okay. I disagree with that entirely. I think that's the point. This conference should be about ideas, and people are seeing the candidates. This is the nice thing, that at least there are differences in policies and differences in philosophies. Whereas if you saw in the Labour Party election a few years ago, Starmer said, "Oh, I'm Corbyn, but I'm more presentable," then goes and kicks Corbyn out, which was a good thing. And has now changed his mind on his policies as soon as he's
the
come
leadership
along.
contest has already been rumbling for week after week after week. If they haven't made their minds up now, then they clearly don't believe in any of the candidates.
Conservatism is a nice, rich, interesting philosophy and tradition. There's a lot to debate, maybe not so much in socialism, where you have to believe the same thing.
Do you know who also has fewer MPs than yesterday? Labour, because Rosie Duffield has also done one. She has resigned.
You guys are all part of the same sort of fan club, are you? Are you like part of a sort of, I don't know, what sort of private membership club would you all sign up to? Because you all seem to agree with each other.
Who do you think I am, then? Who do you think I support or I'm favoured towards? I mean,
that's for you to tell me. If I had to guess...
You just said we're part of the same club, so which club do you think I'm part of?
If I were to guess, I'd suspect you're a member of a Reform Party club.
No, you'd be wrong. I voted Greens at the local election, if you must know.
What about the general election?
I didn't vote. Didn't vote at the general election.
Why not?
I think they're all the same.
They're all the same?
Yeah. I think the Uni Party...
Don't tell that to Richard Tice or Lee Anderson, because they seem to think they're very different.
Let's talk about Labour. Rosie Duffield has resigned. She's given up the whip. She said that Starmer is surrounded by lads in number 10, and she was ashamed of what he and his inner circle had done to tarnish and humiliate our once proud country, Matthew.
I think it's an excoriating letter. I think it's difficult for Starmer. I've actually engaged with Rosie Duffield this morning. If give me quickly the moment to explain how we've engaged. I said, I wondered aloud what the donor who gave Rosie Duffield £10,000 for her campaign in the summer as recently as June, what he would make of this defection. And she replied, amongst other things, to say that the donor made clear that he was backing her, not the Labour Party, and that he wasn't a Labour Party member. So in return, I've said to her, quite reasonably, I think. Were you considering giving up the Labour Party whip when you were actively campaigning to be a Labour MP, and she hasn't yet replied to that?
I mean, can we focus on actually what the letter says? Because I think that's the most interesting part, and that's the part most applicable to voters of this country. And the allegations that have been levelled against Starmer, I think, are actually becoming clear for all to see. I mean, the nepotism, the avarice, the hypocrisy, I think, is the most important part here. And this is because we know that, this is not only just about the freebies and the gifts. This is about the lying, coming onto a platform and saying that there's a black hole and using that as an excuse to target the most vulnerable people in our society, the pensioners, people who have been paying taxes all their lives in this country are now going to be hit hardest this winter because of Keir Starmer's policies, because of him abandoning the people of this country, his voters. This is shocking, and I think it's so right to call out his hypocrisy. It's so right to call out the sleaziness, because whilst he's been enjoying Taylor Swift concert tickets and, a nice penthouse apartment in central London, the people of this country are going to face such hardship, such poverty, such rise in taxes. This is deeply unjust and deeply unfair. And I will absolutely not hear of any excuses made against either Rosie or Keir or the Labour Party, because I think this is atrocious behaviour.
Just to respond to that, the OBR have expressed...
The OBR, another one of these wonderful technocratic institutions.
Let Matthew make his point.
The Office for Budget Responsibility have questioned the state of the finances and the openness, I think, of the finances that the Tory party left. There is certainly poverty in this country. We've got an enormous number of children in poverty as a consequence, in part, of 14 years of Tory rule. Do I want to see
10 million more pensioners.
Do I want to see that? Do I want to see that change? Absolutely. Have I criticised Labour's policy on the pensioners, on the winter fuel allowance? Yes, I have, because I think people just above, and even a little bit more than just above, the threshold of the means testing are going to suffer. Do I think it was good policy or good politics? No. Do I think that... Keir Starmer was deliberately trying to target... Do I think you said that he's using this black hole...
He's 10 million pensioners.
...to target pensioners.
Bills are going to rise by £149.
Pensioners who are not well off to suffer. That seems to me to lose any sort of credibility as an argument. Of course, Starmer's not trying to punish poor people.
Well, that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, he said himself when he stood on the podium that this budget would be painful, using, emotionally manipulative language towards the British public after they entrusted him with their votes.
He's being honest with the British public.
Honest, and not only that, but I mean, we're having millions of pounds.
We have real issues in this country.
Millions of pounds are being squandered on vanity projects. I mean, billions are pledged for climate aid, for example. What about the 10 million pensioners who are going to be plunged into poverty? What about the energy bills that are going to be rising?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Matthew. £10 billion in climate aid to Africa at a time when our pensioners are freezing. By the way, by Labour's own research... By Labour's own research, up to 4,000 will die as a result of the winter fuel payment being taken away.
I haven't supported that, but on the question of the climate aid, do you have any understanding of the extent to which we and others around the world will suffer with climate change? Look at the extreme weather we've already been experiencing. I've had a leak in my own roof.
Okay,
we have had rain recently.
You're blaming your roof leak on climate change?
Could I just ask, where is the compassion for the most vulnerable people in our society? Where is the compassion for pensioners, for elderly people who've been paying their taxes for decades, who've worked hard, who deserve better than this absolute shambles?
I have compassion for them. I'll tell you who doesn't seem
to have compassion.
Is it? It's the Tory party, who have left this country's finances in such a state, and who, for example, introduced the two-child cap that has plunged children, if you listen to some arguments, into terrible poverty. Yes, and I disagree with it,
Matthew,
because I'm not a member of Starmer's cabinet. I disagree with some of the stuff he's done.
You're blaming the leak in your roof on your house on climate change?
We can see extreme weather conditions.
Yes or no?
Yes, I am. Okay. I am.
James, final word to you on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is the left-wing mindset that if there's a leak in someone's house, that it's up to the government to fix, and I think that's the problem. And look, if we want to see the way that the whole country is going to be treated by Keir Starmer and the Labour Party over the next few years, let's look at the case of Rosie Duffield. Matthew asked what club I'm a member of. I'm definitely a member of the Rosie Duffield fan club. This is one of the few Labour MPs, and former Labour MPs, as she's now resigned the whip, who knew what a woman is and has been castigated and bullied out of the Labour Party.
James, is it
horrendous level of misogyny that she suffered. As
how big a blow is it, though, really, politically, to Starmer? It's not really, is it?
Well, it'd be the first of, I suspect, many. And the fact is that he seems more interested in getting new things off his wish list from Lord Ali, whether it's new suits and glasses or anything else.
I could pay for my own roof, thank you very much. I'm one of those people who could afford to pay more taxes and would be happy to pay more taxes. A lot of pensioners will not be able to fix their own roofs.
You can send checks to the Treasury and they'll take it.
If the effects of climate change continue.
James, Alice, Matthew, thank you very much. Spicy, liked it. Coming up, Prince Harry is back in the UK tomorrow without the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, or his children. Are you happy about the Prince's return? Should he stay away forever? Do you even care? This is Sunday with me, Ben Leo. Back in a sec.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Meghan Markle is finding it very, very difficult to recruit staff for her lifestyle brand, which is called American Riviera Orchard. There's a mouthful for you. Apart from a jam gifted to influencers earlier this year, the brand is yet to launch any products.
Well, let's speak to our US royal and showbiz reporter, Christys Schofield. Good morning to you, Kinsey. Who's going to want that gig?
I mean, there are rumors that Netflix has said, allow us to manage the retail strategy. If she can't manage to find a CEO or somebody willing to work with her, Netflix sees an opportunity there.
To be an influencer, people have got to want to be like you. Do people like her?
I mean, this has been her biggest issue in the last few years, is realizing that there's been a shift when it comes to their popularity. Harry and Meghan believed their own hype when they said on that Netflix series that the reason they were ostracized was because they were much more popular than the British royals. They were more popular than Prince William, more popular than Princess Kate. And their popularity has declined immensely. And now they are desperate to win people over again.
Most people have to be liked or admired, and I put it to you, Kinsey, she'll have difficulty on both fronts.
Netflix is not going to renew this contract. I mean, they are fearful that this cooking show, this polo show, will not connect with the audience. And now they want us to believe that Meghan is at home cooking all this banana bread and having her best friend Chrissy Teigen over for scones. People aren't going to buy it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Sunday with Ben Leo. I'm covering for Portillo just for today as he makes his way around Europe on some fancy trains, I suspect. Now, the Duke of Sussex returns to the UK tomorrow to attend the Well Child Awards in London. He's an ambassador for the charity, of course, and Prince Harry will be without his wife and children, Meghan. And as a security measure, sources suggest Harry has requested the location of the event is not made public until late tomorrow. Joining me now is the Sun's former royal correspondent, Charles Ray. Good morning, or good afternoon, rather, Charles. Thanks for joining me. Do we care that Harry's coming back? Is there going to be much fanfare? What's the welcome party going to be like?
I'm not sure if there's going to be a welcome party apart from those people at Well Child. But he's perfectly entitled to come back at any time that he wants, unless he's attacking the royal family, as is his wont. this charity that he's going to visit tomorrow, Well Child, is one of his pet charities, and rightly so. It's a great charity, and I'm glad to see that he's still linked with it, and his name is linked with the charity, and it helps having him as its sponsor and, if you like, mascot. It helps with fundraising and everything else. So it's good he's going to be here with that. In terms of Meghan, I'm of the school that does not believe that Meghan will ever return to this country, and by implication, it means that the children, unless they're much older, will not be back in this country for the foreseeable future.
Wow. You don't think Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, will ever return to the UK?
No, I don't. She's had plenty of ways that she could return with the Duke of Sussex, and she's decided that she doesn't want to. She's made one stop over in this country at an airport when Harry was here, and he picked her up at the airport, and I think they flew off to the Netherlands or somewhere else for some sort of royal visit. But no, I don't believe that she ever wants to come back to this country, which is a great pity. But she's made her bed, she wants to lie in it, and she's going to carry on staying in California. And
yeah, Charles, I'm not too exercised by...
interesting, Ben, that
yeah,
we're
go
now
on.
seeing...
Go on.
No, I was going to say, we're now seeing a separation of, in effect, Harry and Meghan. I don't separate marriage, but a separation of their work ethic and work duties. We've got Harry doing a few, or what you would have considered to be royal jobs, royal visits and everything else, whereas Meghan is still at home, and I don't know what she's doing, whether she's working on her podcasts or everything else. But it's interesting. There's a slight little split there.
I was just going to say, Charles, I'm not too exercised about these two anymore, but, I mean, why have they still got their titles? The Duchess of Sussex, I think this is true. I live in Sussex. I don't think Meghan's ever been to Sussex in her life. And if it's now assumed that she's never going to return to the UK again, why have they got their titles?
Well, they've got their titles because they were a wedding present. It was a wedding present that was given to them by the late Queen. It's that simple.
Oh.
Yes, they can be taken back, but is it childish to take away a wedding gift from them? I don't know. I mean, it's a meaningless title. You're right. As far as I'm aware, she's never been to Sussex at all in her life, and is highly unlikely to visit there.
Yeah, I think there was a campaign by Sussex natives to have her stripped of the title, but look, I don't really care that much. What I do want to know is, Harry will, of course, be here tomorrow, and props to him, he's doing a good thing with the Well Child Awards. He's coming a long way just to make the appearance, so well done to him for that. But do you think, Charles, he'll be catching up with his father, the King, or perhaps, dare I say it, even Prince William? Oh, you still there?
I don't think he'll be catching up with his father. He is in Balmoral. Yes, I am still here. He's in Balmoral. The King is in Balmoral with the Queen. So they're up there, and I doubt very much that Harry is going to be flying up there. I don't know how long Harry is going to be in this country. I suspect it's another one of these flying visits, and I doubt very much if he'll be seeing his brother.
OK, Charles Ray, former royal correspondent at the Sun newspaper, thank you for joining us this afternoon. More to come, but first, Lewis Mackenzie is on standby with your news headlines.
Thank you very much, Ben. Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 12:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie in the GB Newsroom. The Conservative Party conference begins in Birmingham today as the party chair, Michael Winstanley, is expected to say he is profoundly sorry for the loss at the general election. Leadership hopefuls James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat and Kemi Badenoch will be making their cases to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. The former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and wife Akshata Murthy arrived last night but are expected to leave later on today. It will be his last conference as leader. Canterbury MP Rosie Duffield has resigned the Labour whip, accusing the Prime Minister of hypocrisy and pursuing cruel and unnecessary policies. In a resignation letter, Miss Duffield attacked Sir Keir Starmer's decision to make the two-child benefit cap and means test the winter fuel payments, and condemned his handling of the outcry over gifts given to him and other senior Labour figures. David Lammy has spoken to the Lebanese Prime Minister following a series of strikes in Beirut. The Foreign Secretary says they agreed that an immediate ceasefire is required to bring an end to the bloodshed. It comes after the terrorist group Hezbollah confirmed their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed in an airstrike in southern Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel settled the score with Nasrallah's death. A UK-led partnership has delivered a major blow to international people smuggling gangs after hundreds of small boats and engines were seized on the Bulgarian border with Turkey. The border crossing in southern Bulgaria is one of the key routes used by organised crime gangs to smuggle small boat-related equipment into Europe. Over the past 12 months, officers from the UK's National Crime Agency have worked in Bulgaria, sharing intelligence and mounting joint operations to target the people smuggling supply chain. Almost 10 million households have been warned they risk overpaying for their energy if they don't send their meter readings to their supplier before the price rise takes effect on the 1st of October. The average household energy bill is set to increase by £149 a year from this Tuesday as Ofgem increases the price cap. SpaceX has launched its mission to bring back 2 astronauts who have been stranded on the International Space Station.
3, 2, 1, ignition, ignition full power, and liftoff.
The Dragon capsule, which has 2 empty seats for Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams, lifted off from Cape Canaveral late last night. The pair were only meant to be in space for 8 days, but after a fault was found on their return vehicle, the new Boeing Starliner, it returned to Earth empty, just as a precaution, leaving them stranded in space for 4 months. The new team hopes to bring them back in February of next year. Very good. Those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We have an east-west split in the weather today, dry in the east, but turning increasingly unsettled from the west with heavy spells of rain. This is all to do with this area of low pressure, and there's a squeeze in the isobars as well, indicating some strong and gusty winds. But through the rest of the afternoon, especially across Scotland and eastern areas in England, staying dry with some hazy sunshine, but further towards the west, turning increasingly unsettled, heavy spells of rain moving through, and also some strong winds, and there is a wind warning in force for gusts up to 50 to 60 miles per hour. Otherwise, temperatures feeling pleasant in the sunshine further towards the north, highs of 15 degrees here. As we go through Sunday evening, it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled once again from the west, but across parts of Scotland, staying largely dry with some early evening sunshine. Across Northern Ireland, that low pressure system still making an influence, so heavy spells of rain are going to be pushing through. And as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain is going to continue to push its way eastwards, and we do also have a Met Office rain warning that comes into force across southern parts of England and Wales, so expect some difficult driving conditions, but also possible further flooding on its way. Now that cloud and rain continues to push its way eastwards, many places across Wales and southern parts of England seeing outbreaks of rain to start Monday morning, but generally a mild start with temperatures around 10 or 11 degrees. So a damp start to the new working week with heavy spells of rain, especially across northern parts of Wales into the Midlands and towards the east of East Anglia as well. Towards the south, it will turn a little bit drier. We may see some brightness, and further towards the north of Scotland, we may hold on to a bit of sunshine, but otherwise still staying breezy in the south, highs of 17 degrees.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Next Sunday, join me, Camilla Tominey, for an exclusive interview with one of the most controversial, influential and unique political figures of our time. Boris Johnson will be in studio discussing his new memoir, Unleashed, the gripping story of how he dealt with plotting politicians, problematic princes and a pandemic. From Boris bikes to Brexit and everything else in between. Next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to Sunday with Ben Leo in replacement of Michael Portillo, who is, I think, as I understand, he's taking some rather marvellous train journeys around Europe. Some views flying in on gbnews.com/you'll say thank you for all the messages. We can't get through them all, but Tony, you've said, what is it with all this attacking Prince Harry? It's old news. Would journalistic time not be better spent investigating real issues of importance? Tony, I wasn't really attacking him. I said, actually, well done to him for travelling so far to attend the World Child Awards. And someone's replied to you, Dawn, in response to Tony. You said, Harry and Meghan called the British people racist. I will not forgive that. They're grifters who use people to make money and they don't care who they hurt. I don't want them here and I don't want them to have any ties with the UK, to be honest. They lost that right. And just sticking with Harry and Meghan, Glynis, you said, hi, Ben. Meghan and Harry did spend a few hours in Sussex just after receiving their titles. They were a study in disdain the way they greeted people. I must have missed that, Glynis. Let me know where they went in Sussex. Would have been interesting to know. But as far as I understood, I don't think they turned up. But you are probably correct. David, talking about the resignation, well, the bombshell resignation of Rosie Duffield and that devastating letter to Keir Starmer, saying that she was ashamed of what he and his inner circle had done to tarnish and humiliate our once proud country, accused the Prime Minister of surrounding himself by lads in Number 10. You say Rosie Duffield confirms what most of the country already realise: Labour are totally out of their depth. And Robbie, sticking with Labour, you say they always find a word or phrase and use it 1,000 times until it sticks. Where are we? Sorry, I've lost my... They are now saying they are not the party of austerity, but it's austerity on steroids. And Clive, you say, in response to Matthew Stadlen, who was just on the panel a short while ago, you said, I've heard the lot now. Matthew Stadlen blaming climate change for the leak in his roof. No, Matthew, it's down to you not maintaining your property. Well, I'm sure if he was here, he'd say that there wouldn't be a leak if it wasn't for climate change. But there we go. Yeah, hope you guys are well at home. Some of you saying that it's cold and flu season. And indeed, I mentioned at the start of the show, I woke up this morning absolutely bunged up to the nines. So if I do sound a bit strange, that's why. Anyway, we've got a great package now from our reporter Will Hollis, because an Avro Lancaster bomber in Lincolnshire has reached yet another remarkable milestone. The Bomber County Gateway Trust have built a full-size version of the aircraft, which will be taller than the Angel of the North. And with you viewers at home, GB News viewers, donating more than £30,000 towards the project, well done you, by the way, a great achievement, it's now even closer to completion. Will Hollis has the story.
The plane that won the war. Once thousands of Lancaster bombers filled the skies above Lincolnshire. Now there is only one left. Dick Denby was a boy during the war.
In the 1940s, towards the end of the war, the sky over Lincoln was always full of aeroplanes.
On an industrial estate near Lincoln, the Bomber County Gateway Trust is building a full-scale Lancaster landmark. The structure honouring the heritage of the aircraft and the men who served as crew will be put in place on the border with Nottinghamshire. Ken Sadler is chairman of the charity.
Today is the first opportunity that we've had to assemble the entire structural frame in one piece so that people get to see the scale and the size of what we've actually achieved. We've got to move on from this now to put ribs on this, to flesh it out, to give it the final shape.
Reaching this stage is a huge milestone for the team building the Lancaster, but it's not finished yet. They need more time and, more importantly, money.
We need to raise another £50,000 to buy the steel for cladding it. That's our next big milestone. As soon as we can get that, we can flesh it out and we can start planning a completion date.
They'll get to know all about Lancasters in Nazi Germany and the rest of the occupied continent.
In the 1940s, thousands of Lancaster bombers were stationed along England's eastern counties, mostly in Lincolnshire, the home of Bomber Command. Now a new generation is learning about Britain and the war.
So it'll all be clad in Corten steel and...
Dave Starling's firm, Timmins Engineering, is building the structure.
The ultimate sacrifice was paid by thousands of people, and this is the least that we could do for them, really.
When complete, the Lancaster, named On Freedom's Wings, will be taller than the Angel of the North. It's already loved by locals.
A project like this is just such a fantastic thing that should be remembered. Can't wait to see it finished and mounted.
Everything flew from here, didn't it?
And we lost so many men.
Yes, we did.
It means they're not forgotten.
I should be hopefully allowed to see it. But you never know, do you?
The charity hopes to finish the project by September next year. A reminder of Britain's darkest days and greatest triumph. Will Hollis, GB News in Lincolnshire.
Good stuff. And as I said, well done to you viewers at home. £30,000 raised from your generous donations. And we had a member of the group on breakfast this morning who said that 30 grand went towards building part of the wing. So lots more to come on that front, and we will have the latest on GB News as the project develops. Elsewhere today, it's the Tory party conference in Birmingham. It kicks off. I can't believe Catherine Forster's revelation earlier when she said that Rishi Sunak, who of course is the current leader of the Tories, let's not forget, he's going to be doing a speech at 5 o'clock. But then he's going home. He's doing one and he's not returning to the conference, which ends, I think, on Wednesday. So what does that tell you about the state of Her Majesty's official opposition? Our very own Tom Harwood interviewed all of the Tory hopeful frontrunners a bit earlier today. Let's take a look at what they all said, starting with Kemi Badenoch.
Something Labour's done well. You asked this. I actually was thinking about this the other day because I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And there is nothing that they have done well. Winter fuel payment, two-tier care on policing, treating one group differently from another, stripping away Ofsted inspections. Parents don't know what's going on with schools.
I've already said that the NHS needs reform. And if Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer come forward with genuine reforms in the national interest that improve productivity so that we actually talk about outputs, not just inputs, I would support them.
The Labour Party, I think, are really bruised by the fact that it was the Conservatives who had the first, second and third female Prime Minister, the first Asian Prime Minister, the first black Foreign Secretary, the first Muslim Home Secretary. They hate it because they like that tokenistic identity politics. We just get on with the job. That's all I've ever done.
I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience on the front line in combat. I'm not going to hold against them their lack of experience in serious operational theatres like Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to hold against them their record of the past few years. My job is to set forward my record and demonstrate what I can offer this country.
So there we go. Who's your money on? Jenrick, Cleverly, Badenoch, Tugendhat. Jenrick this morning, saying that he would deliver a cast-iron pledge to cut net migration, to the tens of thousands. Where have we heard that before? I wonder. Can they be trusted? Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. And Glynis, just quickly on Harry and Meghan, you said, hi Ben, they definitely did come to Sussex. It was Chichester and possibly also Brighton. That would have covered both East and West Sussex. I missed them, lucky me. Right, coming up next, our Taste of Britain segment. We'll be joined by James Hipkiss, who'll share his Fancy Fries family-run business with me. And I understand he's loaded with burgers and chips galore. Back in just a sec.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Many happy memories, and 9 in 10 Brits say certain foods evoke feelings of childhood nostalgia, with the mousse-like powdered dessert, Angel Delight, the most loved. Joining us now...
By that.
Yeah, what, Angel Delight?
I'm surprised it's number one. Yes, very surprised. Well, to talk us through all of this is creator of the Crazy Sexy Food podcast, Hannah Harley-Young. Morning.
Hi. I've brought a selection of things that really define my childhood, particularly the Viennetta ice cream. And I have brought you some butterscotch Angel Delight.
Yay!
I'm going to expose myself live on camera and say that I've never tried Angel Delight.
Hannah?
I know. I don't know what that says about me.
I thought that was apple puree, actually. I'm so excited. Is it good? Here we go.
My goodness.
Did I make it okay?
Oh, yeah. But to be fair, Hannah, it's not that hard to make.
Well, what is it, though? That's what's so funny about Angel Delight.
It's chemicals. It's just chemicals in a bag.
I mean, it's a load of additives, which, I mean, one thing that's also really interesting about all these nostalgic foods when you look at them is that a lot of things have been discontinued over the years.
Oh, dear.
So it makes you wonder, how did this one kind of get through the cracks?
Angel Delight came out number one, didn't it?
It did come out as number one. And also sort of in the top 5 was fish and chips, something I still eat today. Fish fingers, still a staple of my diet. Mr. Whippy, in that same survey, they said that 95% of people find that a taste from their childhood will take them back more than looking at a photo. And that's something that's really interesting for me, and it's the basis of everything that I do, and the reason really why I set up Crazy Sexy Food, or one of the reasons, should I say, was that I love this concept of memories of food. You know, I've interviewed hundreds of people over the past 5 years, and when I get to that question, you actually see their face relaxing, and there's something that it evokes emotion.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello, welcome back to Sunday with Ben Leo, covering for Michael Portillo just for today. Now, what's your go-to treat when it comes to fast food or getting a takeaway in? Indian? Thai, maybe? I got a Thai last night. Or perhaps the humble burger and fries. Well, my next guest is the founder of Fancy Fries, a firm that began as a modest venture under a tent in Birmingham, which has now flourished into the UK's fastest-growing mobile catering franchise. Founded by James Hipkiss, the company is currently preparing for an exciting expansion into Saudi Arabia and the United States, which will signal a new chapter in its remarkable story. And I'm delighted to say James joins me now. Good morning, James.
Hey, Ben.
And most importantly, you've come armed and equipped with some fries. What have we got here?
So this one here, that's the very first dish we ever came up with. It's called a Mexican. So it's slow-cooked chili. It's like, the sauce is like a mole sauce. Do you know mole? Like a Mexican mole.
Quite spicy.
Bit spicy, chocolatey, very smooth and silky. And it's beef brisket, slow-cooked beef brisket.
Ooh.
You've got all the goodies on there, yeah, of course.
I got a Thai last night, and I got some tom yum soup because I thought it would help my cold and sort of flush it out.
And did it?
Not really, no. No, but it was very spicy.
That should, yeah.
So what is this? Sorry, this is brisket.
That's beef brisket, yeah, slow-cooked beef brisket chunks.
Right, I'm going to get stuck into this. Tell us about how and why you founded Fancy Fries. How did it all come around?
Well, I was just saying, I used to be a singer on cruise ships. Don't ask me to sing. Doesn't matter how many times you ask me, I will not sing. And yeah, you get to see a lot of the food around the world, and I've always been a food lover, so I thought, well, I'll just steal that idea, and put my own little spin on it. And
perfect environment for food lovers on cruise ships.
Yeah, I had enough of the singing anyway, so.
This is my Ed Miliband moment coming up.
Yeah, get some of the meat in there.
Some of the meat, right, there we go. So 2015 you founded the company, here we go. Yeah,
2015, yeah, so nearly 10 years. And I literally started from a tent in Birmingham. Obviously, all legal. It wasn't like a dome tent. It was like a gazebo tent.
Wow, that has got a kick to it.
Yeah. Did you have the chilli as well, or just the meat?
The chilli as well, and the meat, and the fry. Yeah, goodness me.
Yeah.
So what's our obsession with fries? Because we've really we used to just get a portion of chips, right, from the chip shop. And now we get loaded versions like this, I guess they call it. Loaded, is that the right?
Yeah, loaded fries, dirty fries.
Yeah.
You know, I used to call them loaded fries, but now I call them dirty fries, I guess. You've got to move with the times. But, yeah, I guess they've always been about loaded fries. It's just that, I mean, when I first started, I was pretty much, to my knowledge, the only company in Birmingham doing that. And now pretty much all street food vendors have a side of loaded fries on their menu. But we specialise in that, so...
And you do what kind of events? Weddings and...
Yeah, weddings, corporate events, private parties, some street food events, but not much because, I mean, we're so in demand for private parties.
Yeah.
I suppose we've let that street food stuff go, really.
That's pretty spicy. Normally when I get an Indian takeaway or something, I get a korma or a pasanda.
Korma.
Very mild indeed, so that's quite spicy for me.
Just all your sinuses out.
Yeah, they're opening.
You're going to try this one as well?
Floodgates are opening.
I have to warn you, this is a bit spicy as well.
That's fine, I'll man up.
That's the Portuguese chicken. So it's a boneless chicken thigh, marinated in buttermilk. Oh, don't drop it.
Oh, that's all right.
Marinated in buttermilk overnight with spices.
Am I going to need a glass of milk after eating this?
Probably, yeah. No, that one was more spicy.
How bad, out of 10, how spicy is this?
You know what, I reckon they're both probably a 7.
Right, it's live TV, let's do it.
Yeah, if you avoid that chilli, it's... And it comes with the slaw. So, yeah, it's floured and deep-fried, and then we put the smoky chipotle sauce on it, which is a bit sweet, smoky, and spicy. And then there's the really hot one is the piri-piri sauce.
So have you used your experience on cruise ships and, of course, travelling around the world and trying different, food and cultures? Have you used that to invest in the business in terms of your product?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess all these little things rub off on you. You might need a tissue there. All these little things rub off on you. Yeah, I mean, the first time I ever saw a smash burger was on a cruise ship. And we do smash burgers as well. But this is what we do. This is what we're famous for, loaded fries. The smash burgers, we can do them. They are on the menu, as well as desserts, like loaded cheesecake. And,
loaded cheesecake?
Yeah, fish and chips, beer-battered fish and chips.
Tell me about the loaded cheesecake.
Well, that's another thing that I never heard of until I started this business about 10 years ago.
What,
loaded cheesecake.
So what does that entail? I've never heard of it.
So homemade cheesecake. It's not a baked cheesecake, it's like a set cheesecake. Chocolatey, it's very white chocolatey. That's one of the main ingredients. Just load it with, like, Kit Kat pieces and Snickers bits and Maltesers and stuff like that. That's very popular. Loaded waffles, that's popular as well.
Yeah, there's a new dessert restaurant just opened up down where I live on the south coast, all that kind of thing, waffles. It feels very Americanised. Are we being influenced by America a lot?
I think so, yeah. Well, yeah, more so. Like, now, have you heard of waffles and chicken? Like, fried chicken like that on a waffle with creme fraiche and maple syrup. That's the next thing to go on our menu.
Goodness me, I'll need some Ozempic after that.
Yeah.
And tell us about your company's ventures now. You've been going for nearly 10 years. There's talk of expanding into Saudi Arabia and America.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I can say on that because no contracts are signed yet, but we've got people interested in Iceland, Saudi, Germany, Spain. America is in our sights, but not just yet, because you need certain paperwork for that.
Saudi's an interesting one.
Yeah, Saudi, Kuwait. We've got people interested in Kuwait. Well, not people, we've got companies interested in buying into Fancy Fries and having it rolled out across their
Is that because places like Kuwait and Qatar and Saudi and I guess Dubai, is that because they're kind of trying to westernise themselves?
I think so, yeah. I think politically, I don't know. But I mean, yeah, they've obviously got money and they're trying to develop. They're trying to, you know, be the next sort of Dubai sort of thing, you know. I guess they're all trying to be Las Vegas, you know, in their own way.
Yeah, the Las Vegas of the Middle East.
The Las Vegas of the Middle East, yeah. I'll be going there soon to, you know, just develop a menu and check it all out. Apparently there's a big street food scene over there in Dubai and places
James
like
Hipkiss, thank you very much for being with us. You are
Thank you for having me.
Find out more, what's the web address?
Yes, so you can email me, james@fancyfries.co.uk. Web address, it's on here somewhere. It should have been on the front, but it's fancyfries.co.uk.
Thank you, James.
You can even call me, 077 185 89312.
Thank you, James, for being with us, and thank you at home. Dawn Newsome is next with The Weekend. Have a pleasant rest of your Sunday. I'm going to get stuck into these. I'll see you in just a bit.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We have an east-west split in the weather today, dry in the east, but turning increasingly unsettled from the west with heavy spells of rain. This is all to do with this area of low pressure, and there's a squeeze in the isobars as well, indicating some strong and gusty winds. But through the rest of the afternoon, especially across Scotland and eastern areas in England, staying dry with some hazy sunshine, but further towards the west, turning increasingly unsettled, heavy spells of rain moving through, and also some strong winds, and there is a wind warning in force for gusts up to 50 to 60 miles per hour. Otherwise, temperatures feeling pleasant in the sunshine further towards the north, highs of 15 degrees here. As we go through Sunday evening, it's going to be turning increasingly unsettled once again from the west, but across parts of Scotland, staying largely dry with some early evening sunshine. Across Northern Ireland, that low pressure system still making an influence, so heavy spells of rain are going to be pushing through. And as we go through Sunday evening, that cloud and rain is going to continue to push its way